So, this evening we're going to hear two very different stories, two different people's stories. I'm going to kick off with our favorite queen, Queen Victoria, who is speaking about her time, especially with her speaking about her time as queen from 1875 until 1900, with a special mention for 1900, which will become obvious in a minute. So, as queen, Ireland has been a difficult, one might say, I have an ambivalent relationship with my kingdom, the kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. It's always been problematic in some way and rather alluring in another way. Of course, Albert and I spent a wonderful holiday there. And then, of course, you remember the story of Bertie and what have you. Well, let's just say that the Irish question did rather take up a lot of my time between those dastardly Fenians and the Landleaguers and that Parnell, the parliamentary party. All I can say is thank God for Disraeli. I mean, at least he had some sense about all of this. He wasn't particularly interested in their home rule. And he did have the wisdom to confer the title of Empress of India, which I rather liked in 1876. Quite enjoyed that, really. Was fond of India. Never got there, of course. Too far away, I'm afraid. But I did send people out to make nice paintings and take pictures. And, well, you've probably all heard about my manservant. However, yes, unfortunately, Disraeli couldn't stay on in power, and the ghastly Gladstone was, at least I had 5 years away from him. Gladstone, he always spoke to me as though I was addressing a public meeting, and he never had anything interesting to say. He just went on and on and on. So, yeah, the Irish question, it bubbled up and down, and yes, there was Parnell with his antics in the Commons and the Home Rulers, and Home Rule was never really an option in my opinion. I just think it was a bunch of men mostly who were rather misguided. I mean, why would they want to be independent? They were part of my kingdom. And any time I went to Ireland, they were rather delighted to see me. All of them. Well, it wasn't just the Irish, of course. There was Turkey and Russia and then Afghanistan and all different parts of Africa, really. The Transvaal was a bit of a problem. And then there were those Invincibles, of course, in the Phoenix Park. I was rather annoyed about that. Awful, awful, awful event. So I suppose when the Boer War really took off, it rather took me to another place in the world. But I have to say, those home rulers were really irritating. They infected my loyal Scottish subjects as well. They started their own bloody home rule stupidity. And then there was my Golden Jubilee in the year 1887. What a marvellous affair. And then, of course, the bloody awful Gladstone came back. At this stage now, he was just an old, wild and incomprehensible man of 82 and a half, droning on and on and on. I dreaded meeting him. And then, of course, the Diamond Jubilee came along. That was a magnificent affair, even better than the Golden one, you know. It was an interesting time. Again, Ireland came up. I was reviewing my navy, all the ships garlanded out and looking rather beautiful. And didn't this small little motorboat, is all I can say, the Turbinia, apparently it was called, by a man called Parsons in Ireland, steam turbine it was. Well, he ran rings around the navy. Bit of a hoot, really. The ships did try to catch him and they couldn't, so he broke all of the records for speed. Typically Irish. They can't just be like, follow the rules or anything. Then, of course, the Boer War broke out. And there was that awful man. He was a British officer. What was it? MacBride. MacBride joined with the Boers and killed several of my loyal subjects, some of my wonderful officers. Well, of course, I was becoming old and tired, and really, Ireland were not really coming up with the amount of quality soldiers that we'd come to expect. I mean, some of the most brilliant generals and admirals were Irish, you know. And so in 1900, against the advice of my government, I'll have to say again, I decided to take a trip to Ireland. I came into Kingstown, and really it was a wonderful 3 weeks. Everyone was so happy to see me. There were British flags everywhere, loyal subjects with flowers. Oh my goodness, it was wonderful, wonderful. I stayed in the Phoenix Park, of course, in the Vice-Regal Lodge. And there was that wonderful day. That was that wonderful day. We had the Queen's treat. 5,000 children came for tea and buns. 5,000 beautiful children, all gloriously kitted out. Such happy, smiley, shining faces. It was really a lovely day. Yes, a lovely day it was indeed. When I got back to England, I heard about that awful woman. What was her name? Maud Gonne, you know, calls herself Irish, she's actually British. The cheek of her, she and her coven of women organized a patriotic children's treat, they called it. I mean, of course you can't call it seditious, but plain rude, wouldn't you say? 30,000 children they paraded through the streets because they couldn't allow the Queen to treat the children of Dublin. These are little women. Well, 1900, April, the last time I came to Ireland, and sadly, as you know, a year later, it was the end of my reign as Queen and of my life. But thank you for listening. Ireland has always been close to my heart and a thorn in my side. Yes, I never really knew what to make of Ireland.